everyone. My name is Eleyae, and I co-founded the business called after my name, Eleyae. We create satin-lined hair accessories that are both stylish and protective of the hair. The goal, really our flagship product, which was the satin-lined cap or slap, combined a beanie and a bonnet. We like to say if the beanie and the bonnet had a baby, it would be our original product, which is the slap.
Nice. Yeah, hey, I'm Alan Stuart. I'm the founder of Pair of Thieves, or one of them. Got two other partners. I head up the creative side of the business, and we do socks, underwear, t-shirts, men's basics.
And Alix.
Nice. Hi, I'm Alix Peabody. I'm the founder of Bev. We make canned wines, amongst other delicious beverages.
All right, I gotta ask, how many of you out there are friends or family of someone up here? This is gonna be fun. All right, so if you don't mind to go first, Grace, tell us what inspired you to start your company.
Sure. So, hi, Mom. I'm kidding. My mom's not here, but it feels like we're all family. So the idea came from a very real problem with hair breakage in my own life. I was on vacation in my mom's native Kenya. We were traveling to the coast, round trip. Basically, my head was bumping up against the headrest for 12 hours plus. And I got about a 2-inch wide hole of breakage right in the middle of my head that was pretty devastating. And it could have been prevented had I been wearing some sort of scarf or hair protection. But I was on vacation. I still wanted to look cute. I did not take my mom's advice. And I unfortunately suffered that breakage. But it started the wheels turning that there has to be something out there that's both protective of the hair, but still stylish enough for me to feel cute while I'm on vacation. That's where the idea came from. From there, I finally made the first prototype, showed it to friends and family. My mom was like, that could be a business. And my whole family jumped in, and the rest is history. That was 8 years ago.
So 8 years ago. So tell us how much the business has grown since then.
Sure. So the first 3 years we grew 10x year over year, and so we grew really quickly. We've sold now something like 1.5 million products to 750,000 people, and this was all direct to consumer. And now we're in Sephora, Nordstrom, a couple of other retailers in the last couple of years that we've added.
Okay, great. Alan, tell us about Pair of Thieves. Where did this idea come from?
Yes, different, but similar in that we were solving a problem, right? We were three guys, and we were mad that socks would get drunk and fall down, is how we put it. So we wanted to combine a performance sock and a casual sock. That was the first product. We got very lucky, right place, right time, and we sold it into Target, was our first retailer. But we wanted to keep this kind of boutique vibe, but go to mass retail. Our goal was really to improve basics for as many people as possible. So that's where we could do it, and that's where we're doing it now.
And is Target the only retailer you're in today, or did you expand?
No, we're
from
at
there?
Target, Nordstrom, Walmart, Macy's, Amazon. Yeah, we're all over. I mean, our goal is true omni-channel. So I think the days of being exclusive at one retailer are dwindling, right? The consumer doesn't care about that exclusivity of where they bought it. They want convenience, they want fast shipping time, they want a great brand experience, and different retailers, different outlets are better at those things than others. So we're cool sharing the pie.
Yeah, I always say that consumers today are channel agnostic, that they want to shop where they want to shop, and you got to make sure you're where he or she is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Alix, how did you get this idea?
What?
Where did you get this idea?
Oh my gosh, this is a great question, and I'm still trying to figure out the answer to it. But I started the company about 5 years ago. We, happen to be in canned wine for now, but I did not mean to do that. It was a total accident that we ended up in the alc bev space. I knew absolutely nothing about it. Basically, I was living in San Francisco. I'd always cared a lot about gender dynamics and drinking culture, and I went to a school that was really fratty. I then worked in finance, which was also very fratty. I'm sure you guys can, figure it out from there. I moved to San Francisco. I was living there and got sick, and I had 6 surgeries over the course of 18 months. I had to freeze my eggs, and it wasn't covered by insurance. So I started throwing parties at my aunt and uncle's house in Sonoma, my cousin's parents who are sitting right there, and basically charging tech bros tickets to come out and hang out, come to my parties and hang out with me and my cute friends. So that's kind of how it started, and I loved this idea of really a female-owned social space and how that really changed the dynamic of how people were interacting with each other. So I thought I wanted to build like a media events company. We were always a brand first and a mission first. Moved down to LA because I figured that's where people do media. I had no idea what I was doing, and then eventually decided that if I wanted to say something about drinking culture, about that space, it would be a lot more powerful to do it from within. So cashed out a 401k that I had forgot I had, bought 300 gallons of rosé with it, and it's a really good way to give your parents a heart attack, in case anyone was wondering. $60,000 of credit card debt and broke as a joke, but a lot of wine.
And you're in some retailers as well. Retailers.
Oh yeah, so we started on D2C. I don't, if anyone's familiar with the beverage industry or Alc Bev specifically, it's a very tough industry. It's family owned. It's a lot of people who are distributing post-prohibition. So it's a very, very difficult industry to break into, and that's, I think, part of the reason there are so few female forward brands, because it's just men from the very top to the bottom for the most part. So we started online, and that's part of the reason that I actually started with wine, because it's the only Alc Bev product that you can sell direct to consumer, and figured that we needed data to prove that there was room for the product. So started on D2C, that kind of blew up, and now we're national. We're in retailers all over the country. Target was one of our first big retailers as well. Target, Total Wine, BevMo, Albertsons, Vons, Pavilions, H-E-B, I don't know. Go check it out. Look for us at your grocery store. If we're not there, send me a message.
So while you're talking, I have one more question for you. Did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or were you sort of reluctantly going into this?
I have a hot take on this. I don't think being an entrepreneur is an actual aspiration. I think it's a byproduct of doing something that you love and building something that you want to build. So I never thought of myself as like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I just had this idea and I wanted to execute on it, and that just so happens to be what we call it. As my brother likes to remind me sometimes, entrepreneurship is just a fancy word for small business. So that's kind of how I think about it. So not really, but here we are.
Okay, Alan, how about you? Did you always want to be an entrepreneur and do your own thing?
I'm with her. Like, I've never called myself an entrepreneur. To me, like, we've joked that, like, if you say you're an entrepreneur, then you really just don't have anything to talk about. So I'm waiting for, what is it that you do? And I'm excited to hear the story of people and what they actually do, rather than maybe how they're labeled. So.
Yeah, maybe we should switch to founder, since this is founders panel. Did you ever see yourself being a founder then? Since it sounds like there's some negativity.
Even that is a little, like, I don't like hearing that. Like, I like to solve problems. So I like to be, I head up the creative. So creative director was my goal as a young art director.
Oh, so do you introduce yourself as I'm chief problem solver?
That would be, yes. If it weren't cringy, I would do it. Yeah, like if people wouldn't look at me weird, I may do it. But I think that's what interests me about like walking the floor here, is just seeing everybody had a problem that they're trying to solve for, and finding the creativity of either creating some product that doesn't exist or getting into some retailer that says no a shitload of times. That to me is the exciting thing. And where others see that wall, we might find a little crack.
Yeah, and Grace, I'm going to guess that you're going to say something similar. There was a problem that you needed to solve. So did you ever see yourself as being a founder of a company?
I think I always thought I would have like a side hustle, through careers. Had a babysitting side hustle, kind of like Alix a little bit, where you just kind of find yourself in business situations where you're making a lot of money, not a lot of money, where you're just making money on the side. But I don't think I ever had the aspiration of becoming an entrepreneur.
I'm with you. Like the side hustle, this was our side hustle, and I've spoken to so many people here that this was like side hustle, and if you can make that your main hustle, like hell yeah.
Yeah, I like the way you think about that. All right, let's talk about our family and friends. So most of you work with either very close friends or your family is part of the business. So Alan, actually, we'll start with you since you're with your two best friends maybe. So what are the challenges or benefits to working with somebody that you've known your whole life or, basically your whole life?
Yeah, a lot of people
Nearly
ask.
so.
Yeah, a lot of people ask, like, why would you work with friends? That seems dangerous, all that. To me, it's a net positive. It is hard. Cash, one of my partners, he says it's like a marriage. I was married once. It's definitely like a marriage. You have tough times and you got to power through it. But then the ultimate thing is that, you've been out at 4 a.m. together and you've bonded and you have this trust and respect and you know each other probably more than you should, so you can fall back on that. When you're bickering about something or you want to go one way and they want to go another way, you can always fall back on like, look, this isn't going to be the end of it. There's no way, like you can't just erase friendship or history, so it's going to last at least a little bit. And I would recommend, I've spoken to people with even number partners and we're an odd number. I'm very thankful we're odd because at least we can move forward.
You have a tiebreaker.
Yes. Exactly.
All right, so Grace, you have some family members in your company, so tell us about that. And do you like that, or does it make it easier, make it harder?
So I have nothing to compare it to because we jumped in all from the beginning. So I do have my entire family, literally mom, dad, younger sister, older brother, all in the business. Sometimes my nephews come and pack it at like busy times. And it has, so the benefits are that when you're winning together. You're winning with your family. These are the people whom you want to win just as much as you want to win yourself, or even more so in some cases. So the highs are really high, but the lows can be pretty low because you just can get, what gets under each other's skin pretty easily. And we used to joke that we used to not fight to win the argument. We would fight to not lose. So it would just be petty things back and forth for a while, So there's pros and cons to both, but like you said, it's a net positive because really, again, you're winning with your family and weathering the storms. Like you said, there's trust that is already built there. But yeah, I would say net positive, but there's definitely benefits and some drawbacks.
But you had said, I think when we chatted before, is that another tough part is turning it off, right? Going to a family dinner or something like that, or we go out. It's hard not to talk about it, right? And it's hard for that not to get in the way of your friendship or your familial relationship, right? So it kind of morphs it. I'm looking forward to at some point in the distant future of being old and gray and returning back to just friends. Would be cool.
And Alix, you want to share?
I work with a fair amount of family as well, including my husband, brother, at one point sister, 2 cousins. It's a lot. I think there are pros and cons. In the beginning, people would ask a lot, how do you guys do that? And frankly, it was rocky in the early days. But when you have an idea that makes no sense and is completely logically unsound and irrational thing for you to do, you really need people who believe in you. And where are you going to go? Where you're going to find people who believe in you more than your friends and your family, right? And so I think that's a lot of people end up working with their friends in the beginning stages, and you hear all these horror stories. But I also think there's a huge added benefit of baked-in culture, which I think for us has been really, really huge in the sense of you have that's what family and friends are. You have like a culture amongst yourselves and each other. And for me anyway, I feel like it's expanded and it's gone through the whole company where that culture was kind of predetermined and preset, and everyone who comes in is now, family and a member of the Bev family. And so that has been a huge thing. And then obviously there's, as a result of that, we can talk really directly with each other. People, you know that everyone has their best interests at heart, and that no longer, I think, applies just to the people I happen to be related to in some way, shape, or form, but instead applies to the whole company, which, I've appreciated. Definitely some tough moments and low lows, but high highs as well, so.
So when you're starting your company, you started with friends, you had family members. So when did you hire your first other person that you went to a job board or somehow placed an ad? Tell me about that, your first hire outside of family or friends. And what were the challenges with that? Did your first employee even work out? So Alix, you want to go first?
Hey, Hannah. I found mine in a coffee shop, so that's a way to do some recruiting, I suppose. She's still here, so that works. After our first non-family hire, anyway. But honestly, I haven't really thought much of it. Like it's it's all just sort of become family. Everybody, especially people who have been with the company for a long time. I haven't
fabulous.
I haven't thought much of it, to be honest with you. It's been great.
And
I've been really
Alix?
lucky with my team.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, in a way, we're all kind of producers, right? We are all gatherers of people, and you call upon your network of what you were doing before, and you make a bunch of phone calls, and who can help me in this next stage with a little bit, make a logo, or damn, I actually don't know how to design socks. That might be a useful skill for me to have to run a sock business. So I had to hire that. You make do, I guess.
Well, you bring up another thought there, is that when you're a producer and it's your baby, have any of you had trouble giving up some control and letting someone run with something that you used to be doing? Anybody want to answer?
100%. Like I'm a micromanager by trade. That's actually my title. And it is hard, and that's part of the growth that I had to learn and step away and back away. It's part of what made me good at being an art director, but not as good at being a creative director. So trade-off.
All right, Grace.
Yeah, so we, in the beginning, again, we were just all family, but we're growing so fast that, we were basically, we called it race car driving, trying to change the tires on your car while in motion. So we were all trying to put out fires at the same time. And so eventually, we used to ship out of my parents' back room, and we would have friends come over who just wanted to hang out. And we'd be like, oh, I love that story. Can you pack some shipments for us, please? Thank you. Keep talking. This is a good story. Or someone else would come over and like, oh, actually, can you answer these customer service emails before I want you to finish as soon as you do that, And so people would just come in and we'd help them and then pay them for the day, And eventually, I think, you said hi to your first employee. Hi, Coco. That's our first hire. They kind of came from extended friends and family. And like you were saying, just kind of you call on your network and they start to show up. And I think that's how it started. And then when we hire, again, we have the baked-in culture, and that helps to really inform how we hire now.
And I think people self-select into it a bit too. Sorry, I said I think people can self-select into that a bit too, right? It's the same as any other company. Like you're going to assess the culture when you go in and decide whether it's for you or whether it's not for you. And however that came about, is how it came about.
Okay, so how about your first fire? Anybody want to share a story about that?
First fire? Oh, yeah. How about when we put the wrong wine in the wrong cans and sold it to a retailer? Yeah, they didn't notice. So it was less of a fire than we thought, but we literally put the Pinot Grigio in the Sauvignon Blanc cans and the Sauvignon Blanc in the Pinot Grigio cans, and everyone was like, this is fantastic Sauvignon Blanc. And we were like, yeah, totally. So you are not a sommelier, but okay,
Oops.
Sure. Take it, pavilions.
Okay, either of you want to share?
I'm trying to remember my first fire. I think it was always difficult for us to fire.
Yeah.
Because we're family.
Sorry, did you mean fire like firing someone?
Firing someone.
Or
first
a fire drill?
No.
I like a fire drill.
I meant like a fire drill.
I meant firing someone, but fire drill was an awesome story.
Yeah,
so
no, I
I'm
like
glad
it.
she shared that. So who knows what kind of wine you're actually getting when you buy it. I want to try some of this other wine.
Yeah. No, so our first fire, a lot of the churn happened in our customer service. I guess, we brought on one person to do a customer service, and I just remember the story went that she complained about customs fees. This was an international customer, and she emailed. Let's say her name was Donna, and she emails angrily. She doesn't even want the product. She just wants her money back. All this stuff, and our customer service agent, or the person who we had hired, responded and was like, "Hi, Dina." Remember, her name's Donna. And so she emails back all caps, "My name is Donna." I ended up having to call the customer myself and, kind of rectify that situation. We ended up having to let her go eventually, but it took some time for us. Because, again, when you're family, it's like we're going to figure out how to make this work as much as possible because we don't want to fire you, but
sometimes
is she here too?
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, so sorry about that. Yeah, right? No. Definitely not here.
Well, let's jump to fundraising because you can't start a company without some money, and you got to spend some money to get some product, and you have to do some marketing. So, Alix, would you mind to start with telling us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so I don't even know how many people on my team know this, but I got turned down like 368 times before someone wrote me a check for the first time. It was a lot of rejection over the course of like 2 years, pretty gnarly, not fun. And it took forever. I mean, it was it was lunacy what I was asking for sure. It's an industry that's extremely regulated and extremely difficult to break into. But I've found that in sort of my learning about fundraising, and right now is a really difficult market if people are trying to raise money. So I highly would recommend not doing that at this exact moment in time, and doing it as little as possible, because you do get on a bit of a hamster wheel. Once you take in money, then there's an expectation of how much you're going to sell for, and that you're going to raise more money, and your interests aren't always aligned. So if I could do it over, I would have tried to do it a lot less. But obviously, we have a capital-intensive business. But the one thing I will say is that, especially for women, there was a switch flip in my mind at one point about how I was approaching investors that I think is really important, where originally you kind of go and you're like, well, please believe in me. Do you like my idea? Will you invest in this brand? And there was when I started being able to successfully raise capital, my mindset shifted from, okay, I'm sitting on a pot of gold of an idea. I have confidence in myself and my idea and the team. Are you going to be someone that I want on that journey with me or not? And once that mindset shift started to happen, and I started actually asking questions first, from investors, like, how do you like to work with companies? How do you like to work with founders? What do you do when shit goes bad? Because it always does, and actually like reference checking people. It started to, I had my own value in a way, and they could see that. And that's when the fundraising process for me really started to change dynamics.
So I'm hearing a real story of resilience and persistence, because I don't know if I could take 368 no's and still get up and go do it again. But I guess that 368th one was the right one. So that's really impressive, and that speaks to your character.
Impressive or pathetic? I mean, it depends. It depends who's asking it on what day, I suppose, but thank you.
All right, Alan or
Yeah,
Grace?
I have a fear of rejection, and so we're self-funded, probably for that reason. We got really lucky. Like we put in $3,500 a piece of our own money, and our factory fronted us some product, and we were right place, right time. I feel very lucky for that, because people we've met, it's a hamster wheel that you have to jump on, and I commend you guys, because it's hard. It's hard work to raise money as a full-time and also run a business as a full-time, and then obviously mitigate family full-time. But I love what you said about that mindset shift. We were similar in sales, right? We had to approach it a little less thirsty and a little more confident. And when that happened, even though we started begging retailers to take us, it definitely, the energy changed.
Interesting. Grace?
Yeah, so we also were bootstrapped from the beginning. We actually.
You guys are way smarter than I am.
I don't know about that. It was more that we were just on our grind essentially. It was definitely more stressful. I mean, maybe not more stressful, I should say, actually, because yours sounds very stressful. but we basically started actually technically in debt. We put everything on a $10,000 credit card in the beginning, and that was our first manufacturing run. Our website was built with that. Our first photo shoot, I believe we had. The models, of course, were my beautiful sister. And then, of course, a couple other really close friends of mine. And we just bootstrapped our whole way. We ended up partnering with a lot of influencers in the beginning of our business. Before they were called influencers, we sent out product to, I think, 100 different, now known, we call them YouTubers with a high following. This was back in 2014 before they were known as influencers. So we sent emails, 3 times each to 100 different influencers. And we got 3 responses. One said, no, thank you. One said, not now. And the last one said, I've never heard of sleeping with satin, but go ahead and send me one and I'll try it out. A month went by, plus, more months, I should say, went by, a couple months. But this was in September. So by end of October, we were celebrating at like 3 or 4 sales in a day. We were going direct to consumer. 3 or 4 sales in a day. And suddenly we had like 25 sales in one day. Then it was like 50 and 75, and it did this whole little spike. And the one go ahead and send me one and I'll try it, she had posted a video to her following and raving about our original product, the Slap. And that's kind of how the channel that we use for the next couple of years was influencer marketing. So yeah, we grew completely bootstrapped. And in the low times, we just would get very high interest loans when necessary because we didn't have high receivables to like take to a bank and so.
All right, let's talk about the future. So what are you thinking in terms of innovation, or what's on the horizon for your companies? Which one of you want to go first?
Me?
Okay.
Oh, sure. The future, good question. I mean, that's part of the crazy thing about being an entrepreneur, right? You're constantly looking at the past, the present, and the future all at the same time, and it can feel a little chaotic. But, for us, I think it's expanding the brand and expanding into different categories as well. Canned wine is, it's great. We love our products, but it's definitely a slower velocity category than I would hope. It was having, huge tailwinds, and now it's been overtaken by seltzer, and and there's more people who are drinking less and stuff like that. And we really have always been a brand first and want to be able to service whoever, or have anybody be part of our community, which is really how we think about our consumers, no matter what the event is or whether they feel like drinking or not feel like drinking and that kind of thing. So figuring out how to make that happen one day at a time.
Thank you. We we're looking to expand into new categories. We're really deep inside the hair accessory space, hair protection space, and so we're expanding that, of course, with new prints and patterns and all sorts of things. But we're also adding in some hair care products, which I'm really excited about, and then we're also we're looking to do more retail, which I'm really excited about as well. So we've been mostly direct to consumer for 8 years. In the last 2 years, we've, like I said, expanded into a few different retailers, but we're going to expand that out even more. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, we've got a new collection coming out in about a month, which is our biggest launch ever. But the funny thing is that because we're working, a year and a half, 2 years ahead of time, my mindset's in a different space, which is how do we improve the product we currently have? So it's a totally different type of innovation. It's a little less sexy when you look from the outside, but it is satisfying when you can look at your core products and improve upon those and try and make sure that your core is still strong.
I think that's one of the nice things about direct to consumer is your customer reviews, but also an opportunity to talk to them directly. And then you get that feedback about something that needs to be improved. And then you have that information where enough people are saying, hey, how about this or how about that? And you can make that adjustment. So I think it's very interesting how things have changed over time. And there's way more two-way communication, it feels like, today. All right, it's hard to be a founder. And you have fire drills and you fire people. So how do you stay positive in the face of all these challenges that you might face?
Okay.
Sure.
It is tough. You're right. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you do have to show up and be the happy face and be the positive face and take a spin and look on the bright side. I also think, thankfully, like we're in a moment now where being vulnerable is okay, and you can share that with employees to a certain level or to partners. And so now I think people are not always expecting, yeah, I'm fine, or yeah, everything's great. You can share how you're actually feeling. I think it's rewarded for the most part, and it feels more comfortable.
Yeah, I get that because I think if you had a Pollyanna kind of vibe all the time, that people wouldn't believe you. That's not authentic because sometimes life is hard. You have challenges at work, but you may also have personal challenges or family challenges. So I think it's good when you can share that. So it sounds like you have that kind of rapport with your team. All right, so Grace, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like that the thought of authenticity and vulnerability with your team, with your fellow partners. There's also a quote that I like to live by. It goes, "Fear and faith have the same thing in common in that they both require you to believe something that hasn't happened yet." And it's this idea that the future scenario that you're panicking about, that because of all of the evidence in front of you, you have the fear is really loud and in your face, but there's this little avenue of hope that I always try to go to that avenue. I might even like literally write down the hopeful reality for the future, or I might go somewhere high, like literally get onto a hilltop or a skyscraper, like the top floor of a building, so I can see that when I was on the ground, that car was huge and taller than me. But up here, it looks like a little toy, and it's just literally I'm doing a physical thing to gain perspective in my issue. Does that make sense? It's like with the goal being to get out of the mire. And then the second thing is I always try to solve the problem in front of me. I think that the goal. All these problems will come and be overwhelming in scope. But if you just take the first one and then the next one and then the next one, you just solve one thing after the other, eventually you get to the goal that you were, like you said, I'm chief problem solver. Like you just keep solving problems and you eventually get to the goal that you sought in the first place. So there's a lot of, again, it's a cliche phrase, but it's just like you just keep going. That's the biggest thing. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. It's going to get gritty and frustrating at times, but you just keep going. And it's really not always the smartest or the best ideas. It's just the person that that went 369 times before she got her, the first check. Like that is the success. So yeah.
So again, I'm hearing persistence and resilience. Mm-hmm. All right, Alix.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what both of you said, and I think, it's like not to sugarcoat it. It is really hard. It's really hard, especially when you're looking at the realities of, what's going on. It's never going to be as big as you want, or if it is, you're never going to have stuff ready on time the way that you hoped you did, and you're always going to, there's always going to be some issue that's going to surface over and over again. And for me, there are a couple things and places I go. First and foremost is just like having people around you. And I find that in my team, my favorite, and I'm not just saying this because some of you are here, like my favorite thing and where I gain the most energy and strength and excitement in what I'm doing is when I'm with my team. And it can be really easy as a founder to get pulled into a million different things, and you're at conferences, or you're, in my situation, with investors all the time. So I'm really jealous of both of you. But anyways, and it's easy to get, to lose sight of why you started, and it's easy to lose sight of the things that you really love. And I think for me, there's an active state of reminding myself of those things and going out of my way to make sure that I'm filling my life with those things within work. I think that's really important. And it's like the quintessential question that people get all the time, like, what would you tell your younger self? I don't know if you were going to ask that, so sorry if I'm skipping ahead here. But, someone asked me that recently, and I was like, honestly, I don't want her to talk to me, like, at all. I want to talk to her. Like, what was she on? Because clearly she, had an idea and figured, and was scared of nothing. The bigger you get, the more responsibility you get, the easier it is to be scared, the more pressure you're under, right? And so, frankly, trying to tap back into that crazy chick is what I try to do more than vice versa.
So, one more question for you is, how do you decompress? How do you de-stress? How do you get away from the business? What do you do?
Well, I'm open to suggestions from anyone and everyone on that. I mean, exercise is like huge for me. When I'm not doing that, everything else tends to be the first thing. That everything else starts to go downhill. Sleep, even though I haven't slept with some form of melatonin or, more sleep-inducing drug for the past 5 years. But anyways, sleep is important, obviously. And again, just like being around the people that bring you joy. I think that's one of the things about being a founder too, like or just being in a high-pressure job. You just don't have the patience for the bullshit that you used to. You don't have the time for it, right? And so being really thoughtful about who you spend your time with, how you spend your time, that's been a gift I'll take with me no matter where the journey goes.
All right, Alan, what do you do when you're all stressed out?
Yeah, I'm still trying to find the solution myself as well.
No, you're supposed to tell me some great, secret here.
We don't have any big secret. I think I try and remember that, like, this is what I signed up for. This is the fun shit. Alan Watts has a story he tells about, if life is a video game and you went through and there was nothing to jump over and nothing to gather and no bosses to kill, like how interesting would that be? So I try and have that perspective of business or life or relationship, whatever it is. The challenges are the fun things, right? The things that you get to figure out and overcome and accomplish. And when you look back, they seem small.
I like how you phrase that is, I get to do this. I get to solve this. I'm in the place and I get to do this. And it's a change of your perspective. So I like the way you worded that. All right, Grace, what do you do for stress?
Yeah, so more recently, my pandemic activity has been tennis. So definitely find me out on the court like 3 or 4 times a week to de-stress. But I also agree, with the idea that it's an opportunity to, problem solving is like, yay, I get to solve a problem. I think that, in the bad times, we sit in the stress, and in the good times, we're so afraid of the bad times that we don't even get to enjoy the good times, So I think that I also try to remember that, like, even on a heart rate monitor, there's these like little peaks and valleys, right? And so I feel like whenever we're at the top, we're at a peak, we're thinking, oh my gosh, things are gonna go bad tomorrow. I just don't want to lose all of this joy and happiness. But when we're at the bottom, we're not thinking, oh my gosh, that means a peak is around the corner. We're never thinking like, that means I'm going right back up to a peak, when that could be the reality. And it's like, that is life. Life is ups and downs. And I think it's becoming okay with that. Literally staying comfortable is actually flatlining. It's actually death. And so I also try to keep that perspective a little bit. But tennis.
Very good. All right, so we talked a little bit about the past. We talked about where you guys have come from, or we talked about the future. Let's talk about the past just a little bit. And I want to know how you have personally changed. So I did my research in identity development. And I know that your identity as a leader changes over time. And of course, all of us change over time, the way we view things, the way we see things, but also the way we behave. So I want to know about your leadership skills and how have you changed as a leader or as a manager? Because I suspect that you're very different today than who you were 5 or 7 years ago when you first started your companies. So Alix, you want to go first?
Oh boy, I'll try. I think at the beginning when it's, you and maybe a couple people and you're doing everything and it's, for me it was a studio apartment and a cat and touching every single part of the business. And it was very easy to just, the lows and the highs were extremely volatile in the early days because I didn't realize that was the most fun part. So I really wish that I knew that now. Next time I will, because I used to say to my team all the time, like, these were the days, which I think is a good perspective to have. But in terms of, this is like harsh, but in terms of my sort of realizations in leadership is like, my feelings just don't matter, frankly. Like, they just don't. And how I feel about things, like when it comes to being a leader, it does not matter. And if I'm having a bad day, that's not their problem. That's my problem. And my job is to make everyone else hit their full potential, whatever that means. And I think in the beginning, like, that I just did not have that perspective. And I did not have that mindset of like growing and developing other people in any way. And I think it was a lot easier to just be like everywhere all at once and just have like a huge, and I'm still pretty, vulnerable. I mean, everybody knows kind of what's going on in my world, generally speaking, but making a conscious effort to not have that be a distraction, to the people, who are working at the company and who are trying to grow themselves and develop themselves. Like, if you're having a crappy day and someone comes in and they have to tell you something that you don't want to hear, or that they're having a bad day, just check it at the door, like check it. And I think that's something that took me a while to learn. But I think it's a really important lesson for leaders in general.
Ellen, you want to go next?
Yeah, I think there's all different types of people, and so the most growth happens at different stages. Personally, I'm a doer, right? Like, I want to get my hands dirty. I want to touch every part of the business. So for me, the challenging part was to back up and manage people and then manage managers. And so there's a funny chart for designers that goes from like all the Creative Suite apps and you end up in Word. And that's kind of where I am. Like, that's what I need on my computer. So, but it's a hard transition to change your own role, even though it may not be exactly what you want.
Grace, how have you changed?
Yeah, so, I'm the third born in an African home out of 4 children, and my parents are technically under me because I'm the CEO, so, and in the African context, hierarchy is based off of age, not necessarily off of your position as CEO. And so I had to kind of learn not to keep deferring and being deferential, with vision, with everything. And we were so head down doing things. And again, I was just doing, I like to also be touching the actual actions that need to be done. And so it was definitely hard to delegate at first. And those two things, delegation, I had to learn, and not looking to everyone who was older than me technically to lead and to take the reins, was something that I really had to learn and learn, like sit in. I had to name that and then actually sit in that, and make sure that I was actually stepping up and increase my confidence as a result.
Yeah, confidence
Can I
is
add
a good
to that?
one.
I think like that's true not only necessarily for the family hierarchy, but like in any industry that you go into, especially if you're doing something new, people are always going to tell you how it's done. This is how it's done. You're always going to have like people who just come and offer their wisdom and advice about things that are not entirely relevant to what you're doing at all. And I think like learning to have conviction in your own vision and know that if you're doing something new, you're doing it for the first time the way that you're doing it, right? Otherwise, it's just not new, and it's not really entrepreneurial, I guess, in that way. So I agree with you. That was something I had to learn the hard way too. Was like listen to the experience and then know when to shut it off and listen to yourself.
All right, I understand at 5 o'clock we have cocktails, so I'm going to ask one last question of these founders. And I very much appreciate all of you coming here and sharing your stories and being very vulnerable to tell us the changes that you each individually had to go through. So for anyone in the audience who might want some advice on becoming a founder or running a company, what advice might you have for them? And I'll start with you, Grace.
I would say, again, first it's about solving a problem. Right now especially, I think authenticity is really important to consumers. And so if you find a problem that needs solving, go for it. And then keep going. I like that. I know it sounds cliche, but when you get into those low moments, the thing that you need to just keep telling yourself is that very thing, is to keep going, because it will get difficult. That's inevitable. But if you get to the other side of that problem, whatever that thing might be, and you've solved it, there's always, math used to be my favorite subject in school because there's a solution to every problem. And I say the same thing in business. There is a solution, whether it's to pivot or to this, there's always going to be a solution. So you just keep going is my big thing.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what you've been talking about with these little baby steps, right? When the challenge seems insurmountable, just chip away at it little by little. But to me, the most amazing thing that I found, especially in retail, is we'd see somebody like Target or Walmart as this giant mountain to climb, right? But at the end of the day, the person that you need to say yes is a 20 or 30-year-old person, just like us, right? Like, it's not a giant corporation that needs to say yes. There is one buyer that can make that decision. And I think that's true for a lot of the challenges that we've run into. Like, at the end of the day, you're usually just trying to convince one human being.
And even I can even add to that too, because in this day and age, because we were direct to consumer, and that's true of you're talking to one person in the big room, but direct to consumer, you actually have access to the consumer. So there's so many opportunities that you have to go direct right away through social media, through different aspects of, you can ship right away to customers. You know, I always say, the other thing I always tell new founders is to just start, just do something, find a way to get your product into the hands of people so that they can test it too. You know, you don't have to wait for the big break in order to get started.
Oh, to that point. Okay. Biggest thing that we figured out, which we did by accident, was have a product that you can give out for free that makes people happy. Like, I mean, wine is great. You know, like you can give your thing away.
Not totally
and
legal to give it out for free, but
it's a little shady.
But we do it anyway, let's be honest.
Or that you can travel with on a plane. Sorry, that doesn't work as well. But like, if you can give out a pair of socks, like it works so well. Sofa's more difficult.
I want some of your socks for sure. Those are spicy.
Oh yes, why don't you show off your socks to us?
Yeah.
We want to see them now. Check that out.
I would just say, first of all, make sure that you really care about what you're doing, like a lot, like really deeply care about it, because otherwise you're just not going to get through the hard days. And so that's thing number one. And then thing number two is a bit of a paradigm shift, but like you will never have more risk tolerance than you do right now, today. It does not matter who you are, it does not matter how old you are. The younger you are, the more risk you can take on. The longer you have to fix whatever mess you made, right? And so just start, right? And I think a lot of times, like when people are young, they're like, oh, I want to make sure I've saved up enough to do all of this, or whatever. And granted, that might be the smarter way to do it. I didn't do it that way. But that said, there's always going to be more responsibility. You're going to have maybe a family, maybe you're going to have kids, maybe you're going to have tuitions to pay for, like things. There's just always going to be more. So no matter where you are in your life, today is the day that you can take the risk more than any other day for the rest of your life. So just do it.
All right.
Damn.
Thank you.
I got a lot to
everybody.
do today. That's like,
Sorry, did you want to share something?
no, that was inspiring. I got to go do some stuff.
Yeah. Just do it. Do it today. All right, thank you all. You've been a fabulous audience, and thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much for sharing, and it was a great day, so thank you all.
Thank you.